Welcome to Darkwake Signal. The mission was approved. The dive was completed. The report was filed. So, why did the coordinates disappear? If you follow naval records, deep sea operations, and incidents that were never officially acknowledged, subscribe and leave a like. Signal received. Let's dive in. The authorization was issued without delay. Commander Halvik Oren reviewed the parameters twice before signing. The coordinates fell within established operational boundaries. Weather projections remained stable. Ice coverage was mapped and verified. The dive profile matched standard protocol for environmental verification. There was no reason to flag the mission. The site had been designated for routine assessment following a scheduled interval. Records indicated the last documented survey occurred 8 years prior. At that time, the area was classified as environmentally inert. No thermal activity, no structural anomalies. The official summary used the term geologically dormant. The current dive was intended to confirm that assessment. Chief Diver Melis Corvant led the descent team. Her experience log covered 2 decades of cold water operations across 5 different naval zones. She had worked beneath ice sheets in conditions that would ground most surface vessels. Her record was without incident. The briefing lasted 11 minutes. Oren outlined the objective: visual confirmation of seabed stability, thermal scan of the immediate area, and collection of baseline environmental data. The site carried no special designation. It was not restricted. It was not flagged for avoidance. It simply had coordinates. Corvant asked one question during the briefing. "Is there a prior anomaly report for this location?" Oren checked the file. "None on record." She nodded and proceeded to equipment verification. The dive commenced at 06:20 hours local time. Surface conditions were within tolerance. Wind speed measured at 4 knots. Air temperature held at -12 degrees. Ice thickness at the entry point was documented at 1.3 meters. Entry was achieved without complication. Corvant descended with a junior diver whose name appeared on the manifest as Petty Officer 2nd Class Danek. The support team remained on the ice platform. Communications were routed through the standard channel. Video feed transmitted at 5-second intervals. The descent rate was controlled and gradual. At 40 meters, Corvant reported visibility as acceptable. Particulate density was low. The water column showed no unexpected turbidity. Thermal readings from her wrist gauge remained consistent with ambient projection. At 60 meters, she activated the seabed imaging array. The return signal was clean. Depth to bottom was measured at 91 meters. The profile matched archival topography. No deviation was noted. Corvant continued descent. At 80 meters, systems analyst Tovan Iskrel flagged a minor inconsistency in the thermal data stream. The reading was not outside acceptable variance. It did not trigger an operational alert, but it registered as atypical for a region classified as dormant. He logged the observation without issuing a report. Corvant reached the seabed at 06:34 hours. Her initial assessment was transmitted without hesitation. Seabed contact confirmed. Visibility good. No obstruction. She began the lateral survey pattern. Her path followed a grid designed to cover a radius of 30 meters from the central coordinate. The camera feed showed consistent seabed composition. Silt coverage appeared uniform. No debris. No structural irregularities. At 6 minutes into the survey, Corvant stopped moving. The video feed showed no change in her position for 14 seconds. Surface Command requested status. Her response was delayed by 3 seconds. Confirming a reading, she adjusted her position slightly to the left. The camera angle shifted to focus on a section of seabed directly ahead. Iskrel reviewed the corresponding thermal data. The temperature gradient had increased. Not dramatically, not enough to suggest volcanic activity, but the curve was present. The profile showed a localized rise of 1.4 degrees over a span of approximately 8 meters. Corvant moved closer. The video feed captured what appeared to be a smooth surface beneath the silt layer. The texture was inconsistent with natural rock formation. It was too uniform, too regular. She used a gloved hand to clear a section of sediment. Beneath the silt was a panel. The surface was dark, non-reflective. It showed no corrosion, no biological growth. The edges were defined and geometric. Corvant did not speak immediately. Her breathing rate, monitored through the suit telemetry, remained steady. Her heart rate elevated by 6 beats per minute. Not panic, not distress. Elevated attention. She cleared additional sediment. The panel extended beyond the area she had exposed. She followed the edge to the right. It continued for 3 meters before disappearing beneath undisturbed silt. Surface Command issued a query. "Can you identify the material?" Corvant leaned closer. The suit-mounted light reflected off the panel's surface at a shallow angle. The reflection was faint but consistent. Unknown. Surface is smooth. No visible seams. No markings. She moved her hand across the panel. Her glove left a faint trail in the residual silt, but did not scratch the underlying surface. Iskrel reviewed the thermal overlay. The heat signature was strongest directly above the panel. Corvant repositioned to examine the opposite edge. She cleared more sediment. The panel geometry remained consistent. The dimensions suggested a deliberate construction. She did not use that term in her report. Instead, she transmitted, "Structure present, origin unclear." Oreni requested image documentation. Corvant adjusted the camera mount and captured a series of stills. The angles were methodical. Each frame covered a different section of the exposed panel. At 0641 hours, Petty Officer Danek reported a secondary contact 18 meters south of Corvant's position. His video feed showed a similar surface, smooth, dark, geometrically regular. Oreni paused before responding. He reviewed the mission parameters again. There was no notation of prior infrastructure at this location, no record of installations, no historical reference to human activity. He opened the archived environmental file. The summary from 8 years prior made no mention of structural elements. He issued a directive. Document both locations. Maintain visual contact. Do not attempt excavation. Corvant acknowledged. She continued the survey pattern. Over the next 12 minutes, she identified 4 additional panels. Each was partially buried. Each showed the same lack of weathering, the same thermal elevation. The spacing between panels was not random. Iskrel mapped the coordinates as they were transmitted. The arrangement formed a geometric pattern. Not a grid, not a circle, but intentional. At 0653 hours, Corvant reported a faint sound. She described it as a low-frequency hum, barely perceptible, audible only when she stopped moving and remained still. The audio feed was reviewed. The sound was present in the recording. It registered below 60 hertz, continuous, consistent in amplitude. Corvant adjusted her position. The sound remained. She moved 15 meters to the west. The sound faded. She returned to the original position. The sound resumed. Oren consulted the environmental data archive. There was no reference to acoustic phenomena at this location. No geological explanation for sustained low-frequency emission. He issued an abort directive. Surface immediately, standard ascent rate. Maintain communication. Corvant complied without delay. Her ascent was controlled and methodical. The video feed remained active. The thermal readings gradually normalized as she gained altitude. At 40 meters, the acoustic signature was no longer detectable. At 20 meters, all readings returned to expected baseline. She surfaced at 0709 hours. Debriefing was scheduled for 1400 hours. Oren reviewed the collected data in the interim. The images were clear. The thermal maps were consistent. The acoustic recording was unambiguous. He prepared the mission summary. Standard protocol required the report to include an assessment of findings. Orene drafted 3 versions. Each used different terminology. Each attempted to categorize what had been documented. He deleted all 3. The final report contained only the raw data: images, coordinates, thermal readings, acoustic waveform. No interpretation, no conclusion. The report was submitted to Regional Command at 1520 hours. Response was received at 1623 hours. The message contained a single line: hold all personnel involved. Await further instruction. No personnel were reassigned. No additional orders were issued. At 0800 hours the following morning, a priority communication arrived from fleet operations. The coordinates were to be omitted from the next cartographic update. Not restricted, not closed, omitted. Orene read the directive twice. It did not explain why. It did not reference the findings. It simply stated that the location would not appear in future navigational databases. He filed the directive without comment. Corvant was informed of the update during a brief conversation in the equipment bay. She asked if the site would be surveyed again. Oren told her he did not know. She asked if the findings had been forwarded for analysis. He confirmed they had. She asked what the assessment concluded. He said there had been no assessment. She did not ask again. Icegrill submitted a request for access to archived thermal data from adjacent regions. The request was approved. He spent 4 days compiling historical temperature maps. The area surrounding the unnamed coordinates showed no similar signatures. The thermal profile was isolated. He documented his findings in a technical memo and routed it through the standard chain. The memo was acknowledged, but not discussed. 3 weeks after the dive, Oren received a transfer notification. He was reassigned to administrative coordination. The position was lateral. No promotion, no demotion. The transfer was effective immediately. Corvant remained on active dive status. She was assigned to routine operations in a sector 400 kilometers to the east. Danek was rotated to surface support duties. Icegrill continued his role as systems analyst. His access to thermal monitoring was unchanged. None of them were restricted from discussing the mission. No classification order was issued, but no follow-up was ever scheduled. The coordinates remained in the internal database. They were accessible to anyone with standard clearance, but they no longer appeared on operational charts. When asked, navigation officers reported the area as open water with no notable features. The designation was not restricted. It was unremarkable. Archivist Lear Kessan encountered the discrepancy 4 months later while cross-referencing historical survey logs. She was compiling a routine environmental assessment summary when she noticed a gap in the cartographic sequence. A set of coordinates appeared in the internal mission log, but not in the corresponding map revision. She queried the database. The location was listed as surveyed. The mission report was on file, but the area had no designation, not classified, not restricted, just absent. She reviewed the mission summary. The report contained data but no conclusion, images without interpretation, readings without assessment. She drafted a query to regional operations requesting clarification on the map omission. The response arrived 6 days later. No action required. Proceed with current tasking. Kessain filed the response and returned to her work, but she kept the original query in her personal log. She did not delete it. The environmental assessment summary was published without reference to the unnamed coordinates. Kessain completed the compilation using adjacent survey data. The omission was not noted in the final document. Regional Command approved the summary without revision. She archived the working files in standard format. The query she had drafted remained in her personal log. She did not revisit it. At the time, there was no reason to. 6 months after the original dive, a second mission was authorized for a location 63 kilometers northwest of the unnamed site. The operation was designated as geophysical sampling. The crew manifest included personnel with no prior connection to the Corvant mission. The dive proceeded without incident. Sampling was completed. Data was collected. The team surfaced on schedule. The mission report was filed within 24 hours. 3 days later, ISCREL received a data request from Geophysical Analysis. The request referenced thermal readings from multiple sites across the operational theater. The unnamed coordinates were not explicitly mentioned, but the date range included the period of Corvant's dive. ISCREL compiled the requested data. He included all thermal records from the specified time frame. The dataset was comprehensive. It covered 14 separate locations. He submitted the package without commentary. 2 weeks passed. No follow-up request was issued. ISCREL checked the processing queue. The data had been received. It had been logged as reviewed. But no analysis summary was generated. He did not escalate the matter. Standard procedure did not require him to. In the 8th month following the dive, Corvant was assigned to a joint operation with a civilian research group studying deepwater current patterns. The location was within the same regional theater, but significantly farther east. The mission brief made no mention of structural surveys. The objective was purely hydrographic. Corvant reviewed the dive plan and signed the authorization without question. The operation lasted 6 days. All objectives were met. The civilian researchers expressed satisfaction with the data collected. On the final day, one of the researchers asked Corvant if she had worked in the western sector. She confirmed that she had. The researcher mentioned hearing about an unusual survey result from that area. He did not specify what the result was. He said he had been trying to access the data, but could not locate the corresponding map designation. Corvant told him she was not familiar with the situation. The researcher did not pursue the conversation. Corvant filed her post-operation report without referencing the exchange. She did not contact Oren. She did not contact ISCREL. She returned to her standard duty rotation. Oren remained in his administrative role. His responsibilities included operational scheduling and resource allocation. He no longer reviewed mission summaries directly. He did not request updates on the unnamed site. He did not inquire about follow-up surveys. His access to the mission database was unchanged. He could have reviewed the status of the coordinates at any time. He did not. In the 10th month, a navigational audit was conducted across the entire operational region. The audit was routine. It occurred every 18 months as part of standard fleet maintenance. The audit team reviewed all charted locations. They cross-referenced internal logs with published cartography. Discrepancies were flagged for correction. The unnamed coordinates were identified as inconsistent. The audit report noted that a survey mission had been conducted, but the location was not reflected in current navigation charts. The report recommended either adding the designation or removing the survey record. The recommendation was submitted to Fleet Cartography. Response was issued within 48 hours. Retain current chart. No revision required. The survey record remained in the database. The coordinates remained absent from the map. The audit team marked the discrepancy as resolved and moved to the next item. No further action was taken. Kesani was not involved in the audit. Her role did not include navigational review, but she was copied on the audit summary as part of her routine archival duties. She read the entry regarding the unnamed coordinates. She opened her personal log and reviewed the query she had drafted months earlier. She did not submit a new query. She closed the file. At the beginning of the 13th month, a supply transport was rerouted due to weather conditions. The revised course brought the vessel within 12 kilometers of the unnamed site. The transport was not equipped for surveying. It carried no dive team. Its instruments were limited to standard navigation and weather monitoring. During the transit, the shipboard systems recorded a brief thermal anomaly. The reading was minor. It did not affect operations. It was logged automatically and included in the routine systems report. The report was reviewed by Fleet Operations as part of standard procedure. No action was noted in response. The transport completed its route without further incident. Iskrel was not notified of the thermal reading. His role did not include review of transport logs. He became aware of the reading 6 weeks later while conducting an unrelated analysis of regional temperature variance. He retrieved the transport systems report. The anomaly occurred at coordinates that aligned with the unnamed site. The temperature elevation was consistent with the readings recorded during Corvant's dive. Iskrel compared the two data sets. The signature was nearly identical. He prepared a technical note documenting the correlation. He routed the note through standard channels. The note was acknowledged. No response was issued. Iskrel did not follow up. In the 15th month, Corvant was reassigned to instructor duties. The position was located at a training facility 800 kilometers from her previous posting. The reassignment was listed as career progression. Her personnel file reflected the move as a standard rotation for senior divers. She did not request the transfer. She did not decline it. She reported to the new assignment without delay. Her access to operational dive records was unchanged. She retained her clearance level. She could have reviewed the status of the unnamed site. She did not. At the facility, she trained junior divers in cold water operations and emergency protocols. Her instruction was thorough and methodical. Her evaluations were consistently high. She did not discuss the unnamed site with her students. She did not discuss it with her colleagues. When asked about her prior experience in the Arctic theater, she provided standard summaries. She mentioned routine surveys and environmental assessments. She did not mention the panels. In the 17th month, Kessan was assigned to compile a historical operations overview for an upcoming fleet review. The overview was intended to summarize 5 years of regional activity. She pulled records from across the operational database. The data set included hundreds of missions, surveys, transports, training exercises. The unnamed coordinates appeared in the mission log. Kessan reviewed the entry. The data was complete. Images, thermal readings, acoustic recordings. She included the mission in her preliminary draft. The draft was submitted for review. It was returned with a single revision request. The unnamed coordinates were to be excluded from the final document. No explanation was provided. Kessan removed the entry and resubmitted the overview. It was approved without further comment. She archived the preliminary draft in her personal files. She did not delete the original entry. In the 19th month, a civilian meteorological team requested access to historical temperature data for the western sector. The request was submitted through official channels. It included proper authorization and a clear research objective. The request was approved. Iskrel was tasked with compiling the dataset. He included all available thermal records for the specified region and time frame. The data package included the readings from the unnamed site. The package was transmitted to the meteorological team. 3 weeks later, the team submitted a query. They had identified an isolated thermal signature in the dataset. The signature did not correlate with known geological activity. They requested additional context regarding the location. The query was forwarded to Iskrel. He reviewed the request. The signature they had identified was from the unnamed coordinates. He prepared a response, indicating that the location had been surveyed, but no geological assessment was available. He submitted the response through standard channels. The response was held for review. It was returned to him with a revision. The revised response stated that the thermal signature was within expected variance for the region and required no additional context. Iskrel was instructed to send the revised version. He complied. The meteorological team acknowledged the response. They did not submit further queries. In the 21st month, Orene was transferred again. The new position was listed as Strategic Planning Coordination. The role was based at Fleet Headquarters. The transfer was effective within 2 weeks. Orene completed his transition duties and departed the regional command without incident. He did not review the status of the unnamed site before leaving. He did not contact Corvant. He did not contact Iskrel. His access to the regional database was terminated as part of standard offboarding procedure. At the 23rd month, a second navigational audit was conducted. The unnamed coordinates were again flagged as inconsistent. The audit report noted that the discrepancy had been identified previously and marked as resolved. The current audit recommended the same action: either add the designation or remove the survey record. The recommendation was submitted to Fleet Cartography. The response was identical to the previous audit. Retain current chart, no revision required. The discrepancy was marked as resolved. The audit was closed. Kesine was copied on the summary. She read the entry. She did not submit a query. She updated her personal log with the date of the second audit. She noted that the resolution was identical to the first. She closed the file. In the 26th month, Iskrel received a routine request for archived thermal data. The request came from a different research team. The objective was unrelated to the unnamed site. Iskrel compiled the dataset. As he reviewed the records, he noticed that recent transport logs no longer included thermal readings for the area near the unnamed coordinates. He checked the routing schedules. Transports were still passing through the region, but the logged routes showed slight deviations. Each vessel passed no closer than 15 kilometers to the site. The deviations were small. They did not significantly alter travel time. They were not noted as course changes. They simply occurred. Iskrel documented the observation in a personal file. He did not submit a report. At the 29th month, a new operations coordinator was assigned to the regional command. The position had been vacant for 6 weeks, following a scheduled retirement. The coordinator's name was listed in the personnel directory as Lieutenant Commander Vaira Talsin. Her prior posting had been in logistics oversight at a southern base. She had no operational history in the Arctic theater. Her onboarding included standard briefings and database access orientation. She was granted full clearance to mission records. During her 3rd week, Talsin reviewed the archived mission logs as part of familiarization protocol. She worked through the records chronologically, beginning with operations from 3 years prior. She reached the entry for Corvant's dive. The report contained data, images, thermal profiles, acoustic recordings, no assessment, no conclusion. Towson flagged the report as incomplete and submitted a query to Archives requesting the missing analysis. Cassine received the query. She reviewed the mission record. She confirmed that no analysis had been filed. She drafted a response indicating that the report had been submitted in its current form and no additional documentation existed. Towson replied with a follow-up question. Was a secondary survey authorized? Cassani checked the mission database. No follow-up operation was listed. She confirmed this in her response. Towson did not submit further queries. She marked the file as reviewed and continued her orientation. 2 weeks later, she was assigned to coordinate a routine ice platform inspection. The operation was scheduled for a location 70 kilometers east of the unnamed site. Towson reviewed the operational parameters and authorized the mission without delay. The inspection was completed successfully. The platform was confirmed as stable and operational. The mission summary was filed without incident. At the 32nd month, Corvant completed her rotation as an instructor. She was reassigned to active dive operations in a sector north of her original posting. The transfer was processed as standard career progression. She reported to the new command and resumed operational duties. Her first mission briefing included a survey of ice shelf integrity. The coordinates were within established operational boundaries. The dive profile was routine. Corvant reviewed the parameters and signed the authorization. The mission proceeded without complication. She completed 12 additional dives over the following 8 weeks. All missions were executed according to protocol. All reports were filed on schedule. None of the locations were within 100 kilometers of the unnamed site. Corvant did not request assignment to that region. She did not inquire about the status of the site. She did not contact Oren or Israel. In the 35th month, a technical upgrade was implemented across the fleet's environmental monitoring systems. The upgrade included enhanced thermal imaging and improved data resolution. Israel was tasked with integrating the new systems into the existing analysis framework. The integration required recalibration of baseline thermal profiles for the entire operational theater. Israel compiled historical data to establish updated reference points. The dataset included the thermal readings from the unnamed site. During the calibration process, he noted that the signature from that location remained an outlier. The thermal profile did not match any known geological pattern in the region. He documented the observation in the calibration report. The report was reviewed by technical oversight. No comment was issued regarding the outlier. The calibration was approved. The new monitoring systems were deployed on schedule. At the 37th month, a civilian shipping vessel transmitted a distress signal from a location 40 kilometers south of the unnamed site. The vessel reported engine failure and requested assistance. A naval support ship was dispatched to provide aid. The support ship reached the civilian vessel within 6 hours. Repairs were completed on site. The civilian vessel resumed its course without further complication. During the response operation, the support ship's environmental systems recorded ambient thermal readings. The data was logged automatically. Israel reviewed the incident report as part of his standard duties. The thermal readings showed no anomaly. The area surrounding the distress location was consistent with expected baseline temperatures. Israel compared the readings to the profile from the unnamed site. The signature was absent. He checked the coordinates of the distress call. 40 kilometers was beyond the range where the thermal elevation had been previously detected. He filed the observation without additional comment. In the 39th month, Cassani was assigned to assist with a multi-year archival consolidation project. The project involved transferring older records to a new database format. The transfer required review and validation of each entry. Cassan processed hundreds of mission records over a period of 6 weeks. The entry for the unnamed coordinates was included in the batch. She reviewed the record. The data was intact. Images, thermal profiles, acoustic recordings. The entry was migrated to the new database without modification. During the transfer, she noticed that the site had never been assigned a formal designation. Survey locations typically received an identifier upon initial documentation. The identifier was used for reference in subsequent records and reports. The unnamed site had no identifier. It had only coordinates. Cassani checked the designation protocol. Sites were classified based on operational relevance, environmental significance, or historical interest. The protocol allowed for locations to remain undesignated if they held no notable features. She reviewed the mission data again: the panels, the thermal readings, the acoustic signature. She closed the file and continued the consolidation work. At the 41st month, Oren was reassigned once more. The new position was listed as Operational Review and Standards Compliance. The role required periodic site visits across multiple regional commands. His first assignment under the new role included a visit to the Arctic Command, where he had previously served. The visit was scheduled for 3 days. The agenda included briefings, facility inspections, and personnel evaluations. Oren reviewed the schedule upon arrival. The agenda did not include discussion of past operations. He attended the scheduled briefings. He completed the facility inspections. He conducted the personnel evaluations. On the second day, he encountered Talsin in the Operations Coordination Office. She was reviewing mission logs in preparation for an upcoming ice platform survey. They spoke briefly. Talsin mentioned that she had recently completed her first year at the command. She noted that the Arctic theater required different operational considerations than her previous posting. Oren agreed. Talsin mentioned that she had found some older mission records during her orientation that appeared incomplete. Oren asked if the records had been flagged for correction. Talsin said she had submitted queries, but no updates had been issued. Oren did not ask which records she was referring to. The conversation ended without further detail. Oren completed his visit and departed on schedule. He did not access the mission database while at the command. He did not review the status of the unnamed site. In the 43rd month, a research proposal was submitted by a civilian university team. The proposal requested authorization to conduct biological surveys at multiple Arctic locations. The proposal included a list of proposed sites. The unnamed coordinates were not on the list. The proposal was reviewed by Regional Command. Authorization was granted for 12 of the 15 requested locations. 3 sites were denied due to operational scheduling conflicts. The research team accepted the approved list and began preparations. The survey operations were scheduled to commence in 4 months. At the 45th month, ISCREL received a request from the university research team. They were compiling baseline environmental data for their upcoming surveys and requested access to historical thermal readings for the approved locations. ISCREL prepared the data set. As he compiled the records, he reviewed the thermal map of the broader region. The unnamed site appeared in the database. The thermal signature was unchanged from the original readings. He noted that the site was not included in the research team's approved locations. He completed the data set without including data from the unnamed coordinates. The package was transmitted to the research team. They acknowledged receipt and did not request additional information. In the 47th month, the university research team began their survey operations. The first dive was conducted at a location 90 kilometers northeast of the unnamed site. The operation proceeded according to plan. Biological samples were collected. Environmental data was recorded. The team completed 5 surveys over a 3-week period. All objectives were met. All reports were filed on schedule. The research team submitted a preliminary summary indicating that the data collected was consistent with their hypothesis. They did not request authorization for additional sites. At the 49th month, Corvant was promoted to Senior Dive Operations Coordinator. The promotion included reassignment to a central planning role at Fleet Headquarters. Her responsibilities shifted from active diving to mission planning and personnel management. She relocated within 2 weeks. Her access to operational records expanded. She now had clearance to review planning documents and strategic assessments across all regional theaters. She did not use her expanded access to review the unnamed site. In the 51st month, a fleet-wide safety review was conducted. The review examined all diving operations from the previous 5 years. The review included analysis of incident rates, equipment performance, and procedural compliance. Corvant's dive to the unnamed site was included in the dataset. The mission was classified as completed without incident. No safety concerns were noted. The review summary made no mention of the findings from the dive. The mission was listed alongside hundreds of other routine operations. The review was published without reference to the unnamed coordinates. At the 53rd month, Kesani was assigned to prepare a historical summary of environmental surveys conducted in the Arctic theater over the past decade. The summary was intended for a fleet publication commemorating 10 years of expanded Arctic operations. Kesan compiled records from across the operational database. She included missions that had resulted in significant environmental findings. She highlighted surveys that had identified previously unknown geological features. She noted operations that had contributed to improved navigational safety. The unnamed site was not included in the draft. The data existed. The images were archived. The thermal readings were documented. But there was no assessment, no conclusion, no classification. Kesain submitted the summary without reference to the location. The publication was approved and distributed across the fleet. No queries were received regarding omissions. In the 55th month, Talsin authorized a routine equipment verification dive at a location 55 kilometers northwest of the unnamed site. The operation was scheduled as part of standard maintenance protocol. The dive team was tasked with inspecting an underwater sensor array. The mission proceeded without complication. The sensor array was confirmed as operational. The dive team surfaced on schedule. During post-operation data review, Talsin noticed a minor thermal reading in the environmental log. The reading was recorded automatically by the dive suit's monitoring system. The temperature elevation was small, less than 1 degree above ambient. The reading was consistent with equipment variance. Talsin marked the log as reviewed and filed the mission report. She did not cross-reference the reading with historical thermal data. She did not contact Iskrel. The report was archived without additional comment. At the 57th month, a new database security protocol was implemented across all naval operation systems. The protocol required verification of data integrity and access logging for all mission records. Kesan was assigned to conduct compliance verification for the archival database. The process involved reviewing access logs for archived records and confirming that all entries maintained proper metadata. She worked through the verification systematically, processing records in chronological order. When she reached the entry for the unnamed coordinates, she noted that the access log showed regular queries. The file had been viewed 43 times since the original mission. Most accesses were brief. Duration averaged between 2 and 4 minutes. None of the accesses had resulted in modifications to the record. None had generated follow-up reports. Kessine documented the access pattern in her compliance log. The pattern was consistent with routine database maintenance and periodic review. She marked the entry as compliant and continued the verification process. The security protocol implementation was completed on schedule. No anomalies were identified. In the 59th month, Iskrel was assigned to mentor a junior analyst who had recently joined the Thermal Monitoring Division. The analyst's name was listed as Ensign Rael Torvek. Torvek's training included familiarization with historical thermal data sets and analysis methodologies. Iskrel prepared a series of case studies demonstrating various thermal signature patterns encountered across the operational theater. The case studies included examples of volcanic activity, equipment heat discharge, biological concentration areas, and measurement anomalies. The unnamed site was not included in the training materials. Torvek completed the training program over a 6-week period. His performance evaluations were satisfactory. He was assigned to independent analysis duties. His first assignment involved reviewing thermal data from a region 300 kilometers east of the unnamed coordinates. At the 61st month, Oren conducted a compliance review at a facility responsible for dive equipment maintenance and certification. The review was routine. It included inspection of equipment testing protocols and maintenance record accuracy. During the review, Oren examined equipment logs for dive suits used in Arctic operations. One of the suits in the maintenance queue had been assigned to Corvant during her active dive period. The maintenance records showed the suit had been serviced regularly. All inspections returned standard results. The suit remained in active rotation. Oren completed his review and certified the facility as compliant with all maintenance protocols. He did not inquire about the suit's operational history. He did not access mission records associated with the equipment. In the 63rd month, a naval research vessel conducted oceanographic measurements along a route that passed 28 kilometers west of the unnamed site. The vessel's mission focused on salinity mapping and current velocity analysis. The research equipment included deep water temperature sensors deployed at various depths along the route. Data collection proceeded according to the established research plan. Temperature readings were recorded continuously throughout the transit. The data was transmitted to Fleet Oceanographic Analysis for processing. Iskrel received the dataset as part of routine thermal monitoring duties. He reviewed the temperature profiles. The readings were consistent with expected patterns for the region and season. No thermal anomalies were detected along the vessel's route. The distance from the unnamed site was sufficient that no signature would have been expected. Iskrel filed the data without additional analysis. At the 65th month, Corvant attended a fleet-wide operations planning conference. The conference brought together senior coordinators from across all regional commands. The agenda included presentations on strategic priorities, resource allocation, and operational efficiency improvements. On the second day, a presentation covered environmental monitoring capabilities and their integration with mission planning. The presenter was from Fleet Technical Services. The presentation included examples of how thermal and acoustic data informed operational decisions. One slide showed a map of the Arctic theater with thermal signature overlays. The map displayed multiple locations where notable thermal readings had been recorded. The unnamed coordinates were not marked on the map. Corvant reviewed the presentation materials. She did not ask about unmarked locations. The conference concluded after 3 days. Corvant returned to her duties at Fleet Headquarters. In the 67th month, Kessun completed a 5-year assignment review. The review was standard procedure for civilian personnel in long-term naval support roles. The review included assessment of her archival work, database management contributions, and compliance record. Her performance was rated as exceeds standards in all categories. She was offered a contract extension with expanded responsibilities. She accepted the extension. Her access permissions remained unchanged. At the 69th month, Talsin authorized a winter operations readiness assessment. The assessment involved multiple dive teams, conducting equipment verification under extreme cold conditions. The operations were distributed across 6 different locations in the Arctic theater. None of the locations were within 80 kilometers of the unnamed site. All operations were completed successfully. Equipment performance met specifications. Personnel demonstrated proficiency in cold water protocols. The assessment summary was submitted to Fleet Operations. The Arctic Command was certified as fully operational for winter season activities. In the 71st month, the unnamed coordinates remained in the mission database. The entry was accessible. The data was complete. The images remained clear. 5 years had passed since the original dive. No follow-up survey had been authorized. No secondary analysis had been requested. No formal assessment had been issued. The location had never been classified. It had never been restricted. It had never been closed to operations. But no vessel had been routed within 15 kilometers of the coordinates in over 4 years. No dive authorization had been submitted for the area. No research proposal had included the location. Cartographic updates continued to omit the site from navigation charts. The omission was not listed as deliberate. It was not flagged as temporary. The charts simply showed open water. Personnel who had been involved in the original mission remained in active service across various commands. They retained their clearances. They maintained their access to operational databases. They could review the mission record at any time. None of them did. The thermal signature remained documented. The acoustic recording remained archived. The panels remained photographed. But the site had no designation. It had no status. It had no official acknowledgement. It existed only as coordinates in a database. And those coordinates were never used.